Now for global business updates, Rotus Oddiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Rotsy. Good morning, Vimbai.
Share
Good
of my
morning,
love.
Which one is your love? Let go of me, John.
Share of.
It's all Nigeria today. All Nigeria's dominating. In fact, everything is on your front page of today's ThisDay newspaper, Nigeria's newspaper of record. So first off, we finally have the rebasing done. So we'll start with, I'm sure you must have touched on this already. The rebasing efforts by the Bureau of Statistics has finally been completed. So your base year is now 2019. The economy now has, as far as full year 2024 is concerned, nominal terms 372 trillion, which means the $243 billion economy. I think using 1,500 naira per dollar exchange rates, 18% growth in nominal terms, and then 2024. Your real GDP growth at 3.38. I mean, if you look at the old rebasing exercise, I think it was a 41% increase compared to, what was it, 57 during the, when the last rebasing was done in 2010 in the Jonathan period. And then we also got first quarter GDP figures as well, 3.13%. Oil production rose to 1.6. The services sector grew by 4.3%, contributing about 57% to the economy. So we're continuing to see growth in the services sector. The telecommunications was a standout, growing by over 7%, contributing about 10.5% to GDP, showing why it's important to allow the telcos, the environment, to be able to collect their, cost-reflective business back. Also, oil production, 1.6 million barrels per day, probably including condensates. Agriculture still struggling at 0.7%. I think now with the rebasing, real estate now has grown significantly. I think top three now, displacing financial services and I think trade. So yeah, I mean, it's been long in the making. It's finally here, and so now we can, push forward with what we now seem to be a larger economy with other sectors being recognized. Also on the front page today, the Gencos. No surprise that they've pushed back on Enugu Regulatory Commission and their decision to, effective August the 1st, we talked about this yesterday, to cut back on tariffs for their own region. So the Association of the Power Generation Companies, with their spokesperson, Dr. Joy Ogaji, put out a statement yesterday saying that Enugu's math is a bit faulty with respect to trying to, work out subsidy math. Also, like I mentioned yesterday, you are riding on the back of a government subsidy, and the government itself is owing the Gencos money, and they put those figures out. Do read today's ThisDay newspaper where you'll see it. I think they said half year now, they are about 1.5 trillion, and I think for legacy debt now, we're quoting 5.2 yesterday. We're quoting 4 trillion yesterday. It's now at 5.2. Yeah. So, essentially, they're saying that they need to get their debts back. Generating electricity costs a lot of money. It's a similar thing with the telcos and them wanting their tariffs to be cost reflective. They only got a 50% increase. They're looking for 100. So it's just basically the cost of doing business, the cost of providing these items and being able to make your money back. And we've been through the issues with the value chain in the power sector in Nigeria. Numero uno is, generating energy, electricity, which is priced in dollars, and getting that, properly reflected. Transmission, the grid has overwhelmed, population has been increasing, and you need to basically have probably mini grids or increase the capacity of our grid. There's also the issue with power lines, the infrastructure is under investment there. And then to the distribution side, we do not have enough meters. There's still a lot of estimated billing going on. And so everyone needs to be properly metered in order for, for the discos to be able to collect revenue, which they will now pay back to NBET, which, goes back up the value chain. So there you have it. All right, and then finally, we all remember the 342 billion naira shares of First Holdco Plc that crossed on the 18th of July. This was last week. 10.4 billion shares that crossed. We've covered it first, initially saying that it was Otedola who took that a 40% stake. That was then corrected to say it was in trust from the federal government. both First Holdco and the federal government responded to that. But most recently, there was a response from First Holdco to the ThisDay Arise Media Group, claiming that there were misrepresentations and that this was an attack from the company on them. And the ThisDay Arise Media Group has responded, and I am going to read this in full. So here we go. Let me go ahead and read this entire response from the group. So first off, ThisDay Arise Media Group responds to harassments and attack on free speech and press freedom by First Holdco Plc. The attention of the editors of ThisDay Arise Media Group has been drawn to false claims of misrepresentation of facts by the board and management of the First Holdco Plc in a sponsored post in some publications in an attempt to trample on our constitutionally guaranteed free speech and the freedom of the press as the fourth estate of the realm, as enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Section 39 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as amended under the right to freedom of expression and the press, states that, quote, the press, radio, television, and other agencies of the mass media shall at all times be free to uphold the fundamental objectives contained in this chapter and uphold the responsibility and accountability of the government to the people. First Holdco Plc, in its latest market action, an off-market sale of 10.4 billion shares valued at 324 billion naira on Wednesday, July the 18th, has brazenly affronted laws and regulations of the Federal Republic of Nigeria put in place for good governance and transparency as follows. The Nigerian Exchange Limited, disclosure of beneficial ownership. Any person acquiring 5% or more of a listed company's shares, and in this case, this is about 25%, must be disclosed. Disclosure must include identity of the beneficial owner, shareholding category, example, director, substantial, shareholder, insider, and whether the holding is direct or via a trustee or a nominee. There's also material transaction disclosures under the NGX. The NGX requires timely and comprehensive disclosure of any transaction that involves a significant volume of shares, in this case 10.4 billion, or may materially impact investor perception or market price. Partial or delayed disclosure violates the principles of fair, orderly, and efficient markets. There's also the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, the rule on issuers' disclosure obligations. Listed companies must disclose material facts fully, frankly, and without omission. The SEC holds issuers accountable for any attempt to suppress, misrepresent, or underreport major transactions. The use of indirect vehicles, example, trustees, bridge holders, does not exempt issuers from disclosure obligations. Then there's BOIFA, the Bank and Other Financial Institutions Act, Section 7, the acquisition of significant shareholding. Any person or entity acquiring 5% or more of the shares in a bank or bank holding company must obtain prior written approval from the Central Bank of Nigeria. Approval is required again at higher thresholds, 10%, 20, 25, 50, 75, and so on. Acquisitions made through nominees, proxies, trustees, or other indirect structures, such as a bridge holder, fall under this provision. So far, First Holdco has not demonstrated compliance with this provision to the NGX. Section 9, notification of shareholding. Once a 5% stake is acquired, both the acquiring party and the institution must formally notify the CBN of the change in shareholding structure. Again, First Holdco has not demonstrated the compliance to the market. Section 27, disclosure and transparency. I might need a big bottle of water after reading this. Financial institutions must disclose their beneficial ownership structure, all related party transactions, and any information that may materially affect stakeholders. Failure to provide full and frank disclosure is considered a violation of the Act. Section 45. Insider lending and conflicts of interest requires disclosure and regulatory approval for any transaction involving directors, officers, or related parties, especially if it affects control or ownership. Section 65, prohibition on lending against own shares explicitly prohibits any bank granting loans or advances secured by its own shares. Any funding or financing arrangement involving the purchase of First Holdco shares using credit from First Bank would violate this section. Now, in line with the constitutional rights of the Nigerian media to ask questions, report facts, and seek clarity where matters involving shareholders are opaque, other Nigerian media outlets have reported the following by First Holdco in its lack of transparency and full disclosure of its recent share sale of a trustee it described as a bridge holder. The Guardian, Otedola tightens grip on First Bank with 40% share acquisition. Business Day, Otedola buys out Otudeco, increases stake in First Bank to 36.7%. Money Central, Otedola increases First Holdco stake to 40% with buyout of Otudeco. The Punch, First Holdco's 323.4 billion share transaction sparks speculation over Otudola's stake. The Daily Independent, First Holdco's 1 trillion naira in NPLs, that's non-performing loans, casts a shadow over Otudola's takeover. In a July 18th letter written to the Chief Executive Officer of the NGX Regulation Limited, First Holdco Plc referenced Business Day's reporting of the off-market transaction. So why is First Holdco Plc singling out Arise News and the ThisDay Media Group for such intimidation in an attempt to gag the press and evade accountability? The Nigerian media has only asked these questions because First Holdco has not complied with these laws regarding full disclosure. For instance, it reported a 324 billion share acquisition, 10.4 billion shares off market, but when it came to disclosure on the NGX website, it only disclosed 195 billion on the stock exchange, contrary to the Nigerian Stock Exchange rules, which I've read earlier, that require frank and full disclosures and no omission of facts that could disadvantage investors. In asking these questions, First Bank has disclosed that there is a bridge holder, confirming Arise and ThisDay reports that the share acquisition was held by a trustee. A bridge holder, as described by First Bank in simple language, is a trustee which was confirmed by the Attorney General to be Stanbic IBTC Bank. So who is this bridge holder? How much are they holding? Who provided the funds? Which markets are claiming to be First Bank? Can they deny or confirm this, especially under the BOIFA Act, which says no bank shall grant any loans or advances on the security of its own shares? There are also prudential regulations on credit facilities granted by any bank to single borrowers or groups of related borrowers. First Bank is also required by law to follow both CBN regulations and FCCPC rules. So far, these transactions have not demonstrated compliance with these rules. And it is the constitutional duty of the media to ask questions. And that is what we are asking. So instead of holding and trying to intimidate the press and bully its practitioners, what we require is full disclosure from First Bank in line with Nigerian laws for market confidence. This especially at this time when the CBN has gone above and beyond to return the financial markets to orthodoxy and ended forbearance. Finally, Zeus, thank you. First Holdco refers to an unrelated transaction by a related entity, General Hydrocarbons Limited, claiming falsely that it's being owed. First Bank used GHL assets to secure its loan of $400 million from AMCON and has not paid, nor has it met FBN's commitments to GHL. FBN went to court 3 times before Justice Alagoa, Justice Dikpeolu, and Justice Obile, all of the Federal High Court, and lost all 3 cases to GHL. The case now is in arbitration, signed by the Board of Editors, ThisDay, Arise Media Group. Doctor, I just say thank you and let me, you can.
Okay.
Well, no, please go ahead. I'm being sarcastic. Okay. Go right ahead.
I mean, so you brought forward a lot of topics. I think the letter is self-explanatory. I mean, it's been able to explain all its points. I think this is in response to, other, statements made by the parties in this issue. And I mean, ThisDay Arise Group has been able to extensively make a response, as regards it, because at some point, I think it was even Mr. Byron or somebody, he posted a message written by somebody in government to state, the clarification as regards, where the shares were, that, that it was in the hands of sort of like a bridge holder, that is authenticated by the CBN and the likes, and that clarification was. And I think I remember when that clarification was made, you came back the next day, to be able to make that clarification that the shares were the bridge holder. But ThisDay Arise Group has further gone to state its case, and I think this is also in reaction to a couple of national dailies carrying the story about First Holdco, having some jab at ThisDay. And I think it's been effectively replied to in all of this. We've talked about the GDP rebasing and all of that. And also another story I wanted to put in And kudos to the new NMPC administration.
June numbers,
They've released the June numbers, but there was
yeah.
a dip in the numbers compared to the last month. Last month was over $1 trillion, now it's about 906 billion. But at least the accountability that we see the month-to-month numbers by the NMPC,
Wow, refined.
is something that would...
NMPC. Okay, that's fantastic. It's good to hear that. You're always hard on them, so it's just refreshing to hear you just say, you even brought up the story yourself.
No, it's quite shocking sometimes. You have deliberate amnesia. You forgot that when the National Assembly was hounding the NMPC
you came to their defense.
I came to their defense. So you've got it sometimes.
It's been a long day, Rufai. The amnesia is heavy.
And I mean, kudos to you. I think you definitely would have passed, is it prose or reading, public speaking, whatever the class was in school where you had to do a long read. But, there's so many moving pieces concerning this First Bank Holdco, and there are a number of moving pieces around. I think the statement did a good job of just trying to bring everything together and put everything in perspective with regards to the various statements and positions. I think it's also important to always note that, publications don't go to print without sources, without verifying, without journalism doesn't allow that. So this is responsible journalism is, being called out on something and being able to back it up and say, well, actually, this is what I said, and this is the evidence. I have to prove my position and to prove why we were able to go to print on some of these stories and some of these statements. The story is moving, it's developing, and we'll continue to keep tabs on it.
Indeed.
Okay, first on nominal GDP growth. I've made the point that 3+ nominal GDP growth is not good enough for the Nigerian economy. The Nigerian economy, serving over 200 million people, can do better.
Yeah.
We should be looking at nominal GDP growth of about 6.something%, and then we can say we are in a comfortable place. So this is not something to crow about, saying there's been a growth of 18.3% year on year. We can do much better than that. And the question I address is that, is this still the largest economy in Africa? The answer is no. So it's not about statistics. It's about how, these GDP statistical figures affect our lives in real terms. In a country where cost of living is very high and the people's expectations are not being met. The second thing is about the Gencos saying they are being owed trillions of naira. I made a point, and I repeat it again, that there is a lot of opaqueness about this electricity subsidy. The administration may have addressed the subsidy arbitrage in the foreign exchange market, the subsidy with regard to fuel, but this electricity subsidy, we just have claims between the Gencos and NBET, and now that the state governments who are empowered under Electricity Act 2023 are trying to reduce tariffs to reflect the interests of the consumers. The Gencos and the Discos are saying, no, this is not cost reflective. What needs to be investigated is the opaqueness, the lack of transparency in that particular market. And the priority should be the interest of the average electricity consumer in Nigeria. General Motors, we expect their quarter earnings at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time today. The expectation is that while trying to adjust to Trump's tariffs, there's going to be reduced revenues. There's also going to be a reduction, 2.6% in earnings per share. But the major challenge that General Motors faces is Trump tariffs. And the Universal Musical Group is going to the stock market.
That's right.
They produce, I think, Drake. They produce other artists. They own Capital Music Group. They own Motown Group. It was Taylor Swift that I was trying to remember. Yes. They've already gone to the stock market in the Netherlands. They're also trying to go in the US at a time when, the S&P 500 has passed the 6,000 mark, 6,600, the new high, and the NASDAQ composite is also doing very well. Investors showing that they can survive, even in spite of the threat by Trump's tariffs. Yeah. And with Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, saying August 1 is the hard deadline, and that there is a need also for a review of the Federal Reserve. So these are, some of the other big stories out there, just to add to what you have presented. Thank you very much.
Thank you.